exonerations, but New Year's resolutions.
Me?
Yeah, like did you
No.
make like
1080p. That's mine.
my resolution is to I don't know what my resolution is. I think it's to paint my house because it really needs to be painted. But...
Mine is 1080p.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good resolution. I mean, maybe next year I'll stretch to 4K, but for this year, 1080p.
Yeah.
What's your New Year's refresh rate?
Hello, Sarah. Sorry about that. Had a little Mac Mini do its thing on me.
You and Nica both had a little tech fluffles.
Well, that's annoying.
Very much.
Yeah, everything seems okay now, though. This Mac Mini, I've been complaining about it long enough. I think I know what I have to do.
That's the 1872 Mac Mini, right?
Yeah, and it served me well. It just, was only a matter of time.
I mean, it got you through the turn of the century, World War I, World War II.
So many wars, really.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the last Mac Mini before the M1s. In fact, curiously close to the M1 announcement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I needed a new one. It's whatever, Timing is timing. Do y'all need a sound check from me, or is this good enough? Yes. Telegram released version 10.5.0 of Mars. Telegram says, we now own Mars. Isn't that weird? But we did it. Copyright's a real mystery.
On Mars.
On Mars. Especially if Mars is also copywritten.
I wonder what the New Year's like on Mars. Oh, wait, the Martian New Year hasn't begun. Right?
Well, when is the Martian New Year?
Yeah.
Because it's
Gosh,
in
it was
its
so
orbit.
cold in this
Martian.
office all morning, and now it's hot. Stupid office. Make up your mind.
The sun.
687 days for the Mars.
That's a long year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I knew this from
When does it start?
that delightful movie, The Martian.
So every 1.88 Earth years is one Martian year.
I'm going to have to pick a studio name. I'm running out of clever ideas. And clever is a real stretch.
You'll know. You'll know when it's the right one.
I know. I mean, it could go back to Studio Feline, but that made more sense when I didn't have a dog, too.
When you had 2 cats and no dog.
What about
Two
Studio?
cats and no dog. Yeah.
What about Studio Pause?
Oh, yeah, that's fun. I mean, if you understand that it's not, hitting
PA
pause.
30 seconds.
Studio Paw Prints. Studio Cuteness.
Petco Studio.
Yeah, not unless they pay me. Come on.
Let's get a sponsorship deal.
Let's do it. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say no.
Petco, doesn't matter.
Wouldn't say no. Petco, if you're listening,
Have
let's
a
talk.
good show, everybody.
Good New Year, Internet.
Good New Year, Internet.
Good New Year, Internet.
Hello, Internet, and good New Year.
Indeed. This is our 10th birthday. Daily Tech
Well,
News
happy
Show.
birthday to us.
It's actually not Good Day Internet's 10th birthday, now that I think about it. So I should save it. Welcome back, everybody. It's so good to be back in the old saddle, as they say.
Yeah, it is. I'm optimistic about tech news.
Good. Me.
I mean, what other choice do I
Other
have?
things? We'll talk later. All right. Let's get going then. Here we go in 3, 2. Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to all of you, including Howard Yermish, John Atwood, Pat, and our new patrons, Jury File, Mohammed, Scott, Karsten, Gerald, Brian, David, Notleet, Luke, Justin, and Isaac. On this episode of DTNS, Mickey Mouse heads into the public domain. China's selling more EVs, but the U.S. is not. Nica Montford helps us understand why. Plus, why Apple didn't release a new iPad this year. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And dancing at Studio 54, I'm Sarah Lane.
From the Atlanta area, I'm Nica Montford.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Now, all last year, we started the show by saying it was our 10th year, and now that's done. We're 10 years old. Yes!
Yay!
Double digits.
We're in 4th grade.
We're a teenager.
Yeah.
A tween.
A tween. We're five. DTNS is officially a tween. Yay! Thank you to everybody who has supported us throughout the whole year. I'm sorry we don't have like a bigger celebration deal or whatever going on, but we seriously appreciate you, and we're going to do what we do best, starting with the quick hits.
Telegram released version 10.5.0 with a redesigned look for voice and video calls, including new animations and backgrounds that update based on call status. Telegram also says it should use less power and save your battery life as a result. And for Android fans, the power-efficient Thanos snap visual effect is coming that turns deleted messages to dust. Finally, bots can now react to messages and work with quoted messages and also send replies.
Does it? It doesn't work like that. LG has a bit of a tradition of announcing lots of stuff in December ahead of showing it off and giving a few more details at CES in January. So here's a rundown of some of the things it announced over the last week or so. The Duke Box rhymes with jukebox. It's a smart speaker with vacuum tubes, and you can see the tubes through an adjustable transparent OLED display. There's also the MyView series of 32-inch 4K monitors. Those run WebOS, so not only can they be a smart TV, they can also run Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. Those will run between $500 and $600. The Cinebeam Cube, spelled with a Q, Q-U-B-E, is a 4K projector with a handle. Makes it look like a coffee grinder. New LG Gram laptops will include Intel's Ultra chips for on-device AI processing. And finally, an unnamed two-legged wheeled robot similar to Amazon's Astro that LG says can act as a home monitor.
Apps like eBay and Airbnb that allow private citizens to earn money within the app will now be reporting those earnings to tax authorities based on a new agreement from the 38 members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. The OECD includes Europe, the US, the UK, Israel, Japan, Korea, and more. The amount of tax you might need to pay on this income will vary by country.
Counterpoint released its estimates on premium smartphone sales in 2023. It defines premium, if you're like, what does that mean, as a wholesale value of $600 or more. That equates to a retail price of $800 or more. The projected premium total smartphone market rose globally, bucking the trend, 6 points to 24%, record sales of premium phones in 2023. Much of the growth in 2023 was driven by China, Western Europe, India, and Middle East and Africa regions, with India being the fastest growing premium market globally. Apple dropped 4 points in the premium market, but still is dominant with 71% market share, followed by Samsung with 17% and Huawei resurgent with 5%.
Camera makers, news organizations, and technology companies are looking to differentiate their images from those generated by that pesky artificial intelligence, creating a free web tool called Verify, which checks for authenticity of images and is being adopted by Nikon, Canon, and Sony. So if an image has a verified digital signature, the tool will display the date, the location, and other credentials for that image. Camera manufacturers are updating firmware on professional cameras to support Verify this year. And Canon has a new camera in development coming next year that will also support Verify directly.
All right, let's get to the big news then.
All right, everybody. Mickey Mouse now in the public domain in the U.S. You likely saw or even heard of some headlines about this, and some people are a little confused. What does this mean? Since copyright is a big part of all of our modern rights online, let's go over what this does and doesn't mean, Tom.
Okay, Sarah. First, a bit of history. U.S. copyright law used to be 28 years. You get something protected for 28 years until 1976 when they started extending it. And it got extended twice to end up being 95 years or the life of the author plus 70 years, whichever one is shorter. It's more complicated for sound recordings. So you may see that some recordings that are 100 years old are going into the public domain. But for non-sound recordings, that includes film, they go in after 95 years. Okay, so back to Steamboat Willie. The Mickey Mouse in the film is now public domain. That means there is no copyright protection for it. Anybody can use it. It does not mean Mickey Mouse itself is public domain. It gets a little complicated, and a lot of it would be up to how a judge would decide it if it went to court. But essentially, you can do anything you want with the film Steamboat Willie. You can recut it, remix it, et cetera, and you can derive things from it as long as what you derive is not from other copyrighted works. You also have to keep in mind that Mickey Mouse is a trademark, not just a copyright. So you can copy Steamboat Willie, but you can't make him your logo and say, this is my company logo. That's trademarked to Disney. So you can't go using the name in any way that would make people think what you made is from Disney. But Nica, you were saying it took you a minute to kind of wrap your mind around the fact that like Steamboat Willie is just public. Nobody can get the copyright on it anymore.
Yeah. So when this first kind of came out in the news and everyone was talking about it, I initially thought, oh my gosh, anybody can use or buy the rights to Mickey Mouse. And I'm like, how did Disney let that happen? But I now realize it's because of US copyright law. And it does make it a little bit, if you don't know the nuance, if you haven't read a little bit further, you would think like I did off the top that, oh, this means that it's free game for anybody to use or to own. And so it really is kind of complicated once you look into the details around it. But I was absolutely initially concerned that, oh wow, anybody can do anything with the imagery of Mickey Mouse and Disney not be able to do anything about it.
I mean, okay, this is maybe a stupid question, but I bet a lot of other people have it. Okay, Mickey Mouse is in the film Steamboat Willie. Mickey Mouse exists in many, many other places outside of that film. Can you only remix the film?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then how are we seeing, because a couple of the headlines that I was seeing are examples like, for example, the slasher film called Mickey's Mousetrap, the video game called Infestation 88 that have Mickey-esque stuff inside. Can you not say the words Mickey Mouse?
No, they can say the words Mickey Mouse, but they have to be careful of infringing on trademark if they do, right? So that's a whole separate conversation. They can show a Mickey Mouse in their slasher film that looks like the Steamboat Willie one. But they can't. If Disney could go to court and say that's not the Steamboat Willie one, that's the one from Fantasia somehow, and convince a judge of that, then they would be infringing. So that's why I said a lot of it depends on what a judge would decide.
Right.
But they are fairly well protected as long as they stick pretty close to what Steamboat Willie has. There's also apparently an advertisement for Steamboat Willie that had the yellow hands and the red shorts in it. And so some people are like, well, you can now use that one too, because that was published the same year as Steamboat Willie. So it does get tricky, but yeah, it does mean that you can see people use the image of Mickey Mouse a lot more now.
But it's just like you said, the Steamboat Willie version. So Mickey Mouse his look has evolved over the years.
Totally.
So you can't use any evolution of Mickey Mouse. It has to be localized to that specific version of Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie. Okay.
But I could make a Steamboat Willie video game just as long as I stick to what it looked like in Steamboat Willie. A bunch of other stuff. Winnie the Pooh's first work went into public domain. I believe it was last year. We saw the Winnie the Pooh horror film at that point. House at Pooh Corner is now in the public domain. So that brings Tigger into the public domain. You've also got The Mystery of the Blue Train by Agatha Christie, All Quiet on the Western Front, which everybody made movies of before it went into the public domain. It's now in the public domain. Orlando by Virginia Woolf. The song Mac the Knife in German
Interesting.
is now in the public domain.
Now you said
but not
that
the recording of the song, just the work itself.
Now, you mentioned All Quiet on the Western Front before it entered the public domain. How can a film get away with that?
Well, they paid. They paid for the license, right?
Got it. So there's a licensing
you
thing
get
here.
permission. Well, and I guess they might have not paid, but I'm guessing they paid.
Sure.
Yeah, but you get if you get permission, then you can do it. And
Yeah, it doesn't
usually
mean
the way
it's
to get
completely hands off. It just
exactly.
means you don't just get to kind of do what you want unless you want a lawsuit.
Exactly. Public domain means I don't need to ask anybody's permission. It is no longer protected by copyright, so I can go and use that work as much as I want. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Well, Apple did something pretty crazy last year, something it hasn't done since 2010. Anybody have guesses? All right, I'll just tell you. It failed to release a new version or even a refresh of a
Failure to
single
launch.
iPad model. Yeah. Instead of that signaling that Apple is no longer committed to the iPad, rumors and analyst forecasts point to 2024 maybe being a pretty significant year for the iPad lineup, with every model, including the entry-level iPad, iPad mini, iPad Air, and iPad Pro, possibly getting a hardware refresh. Apple has not said that they're doing this, but that's kind of the rumor mill. Now, if a rumored 12.9-inch iPad Air also launches this year, also a rumor, that would be a record 6 new iPad models in 2024 and expand the lineup overall. Now, Nica, obviously, we're waiting on the Vision Pro. That continues to loom on the horizon. Other rumors point to as early as later this month for a launch there. Knowing that that's going to be kind of the thing of the year for Apple, the new and cool thing, how do you feel about it potentially also being a big iPad year?
What I actually think is, like you mentioned, Vision Pro is, to me, the cornerstone of Apple's launches for 2024. And really anything that comes in addition to that, barring, the new iPhone later this year, it would really kind of step on, the what the Vision Pro stands for and, Apple's crowning jewel. So I think it's likely, if we do get new iPads, which we probably will since we didn't get anything last year, to me, I think it's going to go along the lines of a highly produced video announcing the launch of whatever new iPads they come out with and post it to the website. Something of, hey, go check out, an email will go out. Hey, we got new iPads. Go check out the video. Learn how to buy it, find out about it. Barring some significant, redesign or overhaul of the iPad, which I don't think they actually have the time for, since a lot of focus has been on Vision Pro. I really think that's likely, what we're going to see happen with iPads. I think it's going to be, sad to say, a bit of a footnote in the big year of Vision Pro.
I also wonder how many of the iPad product lineup remains. I mean, we've got first iPad that launched in 2010, iPad mini launched in 2012, first gen of all of these. iPad Air launched in 2013, iPad Pro in 2015. No new iPad mini since the 6th gen, that was back in 2021. If I had to guess, I would say the iPad mini goes away. It's never made much sense to me as a product. Now, you might be home saying, I love my iPad mini. I'm a big iPhone person, so when you got the Max Pro next to the iPad mini, they're too close to me, for me. So it's never made a lot of sense to me, and the rumors have swirled that the iPad mini might not be long for this world anyway, but I also just think Apple might say, we don't need to do iPad refreshes every year. People don't buy iPads with the same frequency that they buy iPhones.
No, I think Paul hit on it. I'm going to steal his take from the chat room.
All right.
iPad Fold.
Oh.
Because I was thinking, the reason they didn't do an iPad last year was logistical. So maybe they're trying to get everything over to the M chip, and they didn't want to steal M chips from the MacBooks, and so they didn't want to switch it yet. If they're planning a Fold, not only does that fit my logistical thing, which is, they have a whole bunch of new parts that they need to make sure they have enough of before they launch it. It also fits what you were saying, Sarah, which is, let's get rid of the iPad mini. The new iPad mini is a Fold. It's an iPad mini when it's folded, and it's a bigger iPad when you unfold it.
It's the best iPad mini ever.
It's the best iPad mini you've ever had. So.
I think we're right. If this was our 2023 prediction show, that would have been a real good one. And I think there's that makes a lot of sense, Paul. Thank you.
And if Apple sticks to the rumors of releasing the Vision Pro end of January, maybe even into February, maybe the iPad Fold gets pushed back and maybe it's like a late spring type of announcement. So every product kind of has its moment to flourish, because at the very beginning of the year, we get the Vision Pro. Everybody's, oh my God, what is it? Let's play with it. Let's see what it is. Then when the novelty and the excitement of the initial launch wears off, then they hit you again with boom. Now we got an iPad Fold, and we're just so innovative. We got innovation, coming out the yin yang. So that, Paul might be onto something there.
The usual, with last year accepted, the usual pattern was to release iPads in March. So they might go back to that with potentially a foldable, because I think it was the minis that usually got released in March too.
Mm-hmm.
I know Charlie in Columbus is like, iPad mini's selling point was price. The key there, Charlie, is the past tense. If we do what we're thinking and what Paul is suggesting, it would probably not be a selling point that it was price anymore, and they would maybe just discount the the iPad Air and say that that's now the affordable one, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, folks, if you've got thoughts on this, like Paul did, we love to hear them, and we like to share them around because it helps us all understand what's going on in tech better. One of the great ways to do that is in our Discord. You can join our Discord and get in on the conversation there by linking your Patreon account. So become a patron, patreon.com/DTNS. It's like 25 cents a show. It's super cheap. And then link it to the Discord. You can start chatting with everybody you want. Toward the end of last year, a number of automakers started paring back on their electric vehicle plans. Sales were starting to drop or slow. Rivian missed its quarterly delivery expectations. Tesla met its delivery estimates in Q4, but they had to cut prices to do it. And Ford has said it's cutting back production of its F-150 Lightning for the next year. Meanwhile, China is a different story. BYD saw sales rise 61.9% on the year, passing Tesla to become the leading seller in Q4. And China's Geely also raised its sales forecasts. Nica, you've been following all of this. What's going on here?
So this is very interesting, especially with the new knowledge, new to me, about what's going on with China and their sales goals. But if you'll notice, prices of EVs, I think, are exceeding some initial expectations. Everyone, maybe a couple years ago, EVs are the way of the future. You had the federal government saying they wanted, fleets, fully electric by 2030. Most, if not all, of your major car players were in on it. It's like, yes, let's get these EVs out. Ford, GM, you mentioned Rivian. Of course, we already know Tesla. They're like, let's get this ball rolling. Let's get these new fleets of vehicles out. Well, now we've come to the point where it's a little bit oversaturation. There are lots of EVs available, more planned EVs to come, and they aren't quite selling so much in the US. And I think it can be attributed to a couple of things. Again, I mentioned cost. A reduce in demand, and then of course that sneaky little I word, inflation. We also have had the UAW strikes last year, so it's a lot of things kind of twirling around that can attribute to this. In addition to issues with infrastructure, as you remember in President Biden's infrastructure plan, there was a section carved out specifically for making sure charging stations were available, making sure batteries are being produced in the U.S. And I think the plan through the federal government with its infrastructure plan, I don't think it's quite moving as fast as production is from these different companies. And it's just one of those things where everybody is flooding the market with their versions. And again, we can't, negate the fact that last year we saw a lot of layoffs as well. So I think when you couple in cost of productions, when you factor in, what people losing their jobs, holding onto their cars a little bit longer. And I also think there's another thing that we may not really maybe notice so much. It's the fact that anytime there's a major shift, especially in the US, of adopting new technology or new products, a lot of Americans meet some of these things with skepticism. It's like, I don't know if I really trust, cars with batteries. Give me my combustible engines. I know the oil works, the gas works. Let's keep up with that. So not everybody is really early adopters. So I think that has a point to it as well. And we've seen, what is it? Ford, they've reduced their production for their electric F-150. GM once had a plan to have to produce 400,000 electric vehicles by mid 2024. That's this year. So that's basically a few months down. They recently backed off of that production goal back in November, I believe. So it's one of those things where there's a lot at play here. But I think it's just growing pains of bringing in something, trying to overhaul the way that we work and the way that we move in society. I think the pendulum will eventually swing back on the positive side of EVs, but right now the water's a little bit murky.
Yeah, it seems like a combination of pocketbooks being tightened and also just market saturation. Looking at this as compared to BYD's sales rising a lot over in China, it's not that someone who doesn't have an EV will never have one in the future, but I think we're still in that period where if you want one and you understand how your life will be fine with one, and in many cases much better, then you potentially already have your EV. There are a lot of folks who still can't, quite figure out why it's worth, in many cases, the extra cost or changing your daily patterns enough to make it make sense. I actually, now that I'm back in Los Angeles, Los Angeles is full of just more cars than pretty much anywhere else. But I in the Bay Area, there were so many more Teslas and just EVs in general that I just saw on a daily basis. And I think it does point to a lot of people spending a lot more time in their cars and the charging situation, depending on where you live, just not making a lot of sense yet. Yeah.
And to all your points, BYD sells its cars in a lower price range. They're not cheap. They're still, high 20s, $30,000 equivalent. But it's cheaper than Tesla on average. So even BYD didn't sell what they thought they would sell, but they still made a lot of cars and they still sold a lot of cars. I think another thing that's happening is competition. So we're all talking about a confluence of events, right? There's that skepticism that Nica's talking about that kicks in at a certain point where companies get a little more excited about their new thing than the customer base is, and there's a little lag between it. I think you're right. I think we're seeing that. And there's just inflation, economic uncertainty. I don't know if I want to splash out on something that's a little more expensive. I'll go with a more affordable model. That's definitely happening. But there's also more choice. So Ford isn't the only company making electric vehicles, right? Even though it may be only one of a few making a truck, it's starting to see that some people are like, you know what, maybe I'll choose a Chevy Bolt. Maybe I'll choose a Jeep Wrangler plug-in hybrid instead, which means they might have to readjust and say, you know what, we're not going to make as many because there's more competition than we expected out there.
Competition is good for the consumer.
It is. It should bring down the prices, though.
Hopefully.
And we're not seeing that, I think, partly because the subsidies in the U.S. have changed. So starting as of January 1st, your EV tax credit applies to fewer models of EVs than it did last year because of the restrictions on where the parts have to come from. Batteries can't be made in China, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of details on those parts and what the restrictions are. But the upshot at the end is it's a shorter list of vehicles that get the full $7,500 credit. It's Chevy Bolt, Chrysler Pacifica, Ford F-150, the Tesla models. That's it. You want a Rivian, you want a Jeep Grand Cherokee, you want a Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring, you're getting a $3,750 tax credit. You're getting a lower tax credit. That means the prices effectively are going to look higher to consumers.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where electric vehicles aren't such a novice anymore. They've become quote unquote mainstream. So they are more accessible than they initially were when the original rebates were happening, incentives were happening. So it makes sense that now that it's becoming a part of that EVs are becoming a part of our everyday life, that the adjustments and the rebates for them, the incentives for them are going down, because the goal, as with what the government and President Biden have wanted is, to have, the fleet by 2030. So EVs will become, in theory, less of an anomaly, less of than just combustible engines. So it makes sense that the incentives are fluctuating and reflecting that change.
And I think you're right. Like this is probably not like, oh, EVs were a fraud. This is probably, hey, the curves are never linear, and sometimes they look like they're going down temporarily, and that's probably what we're seeing. We're just seeing a slowdown in it. I think you're probably right. All right, let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. Damon wrote in and said, with the announcement of Bird, e-scooter company, filing for bankruptcy back in December, and talk on the show about how much longer the e-scooter market can stay afloat, one place that may never die is on college campuses. Damon says, I work at a large university. During the boom, the campus was flooded with scooters from Lime, Bird, and others. Many of the problems that were discussed on the show, scooters ended up in fountains, rivers, backyards. Recently, the university partnered with one company, VO, and it's been much better. Students didn't want a total ban on the scooters because they're a great way to get across campus quickly, and the university wanted one company to be responsible for the maintenance of the fleet. I feel that college campuses and other locations that are more pedestrian-focused are better suited for this mode of transportation than in the downtown of a large city where automobile traffic is higher.
Yeah, I don't think these scooters are going away. I think we're just figuring out where they work.
Where they work best.
There were some places that maybe they didn't work. So, yeah.
I mean, they are in all sorts of front yards around my new neighborhood, and I don't know how that's working. I just don't understand.
Yeah. I don't see them in my neighborhood, but I see them near my neighborhood. So I feel like, oh, they aren't working here, but they're working a couple blocks away, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I also see people riding them, so it's not just that they're discarded and left to die, but they're working somehow still.
And we got an email from Lance in Mississippi who said, I loved the discussion on smart car functionality with AI. I just wanted to let Sarah know that my wife has the same vehicle that she does, the Volvo XC60, I believe, and actually will do those functions of I'm cold or I'm hot and adjust the temperature incrementally. You just have to say it, just in case you didn't know. Thanks for the awesome show, as always. Have you tried it?
No, Lance.
I gotta try it now.
By the time I read this email, I don't know. I didn't have a good reason to get in my car. I had to work on the show this morning. But let me tell you, this afternoon, I'm going to give it a shot.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah. And thanks to you, Nica Montford. Happy New Year to you. Let folks know where they can keep up with you in 2024.
Sure. As always, it's great to be here with you guys. You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva pretty much everywhere. Also, you can head on over to snubblewestcast.com and get all the details on the Apple themed podcast that I co-host with Brother Tech, Terrence Gaines.
Fantastic. Now, patrons, stick around for the extended show, Good Day Internet. I'd say we let our hair down, but that wouldn't apply to me. But we do kind of relax and kick back and talk a little more. Nica's going to update us on what's happening with Microsoft Copilot. That's the AI assistant for developers. So stick around for that.
Reminder, you can catch our show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 2100 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back again tomorrow talking about Square Enix's aggressive plan to use AI in its games with none other than Scott Johnson.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Oh, yeah, that was Howard Yermish. Do it with the new outro. What did you all think?
I thought it was great.
Let's hear it again.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Thank you, Howard.
Thanks, Howard. That sounds cool.
Howard was like, you might want to redo it with your own voice. I was like, no, that's really good. I'm just going to have Howard do it. Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. Like, ooh, who's that, man behind the curtain? Well, it's Howard, okay? Everybody, it's Howard.
You all know that it's Howard now. Other people keep the secret. No. That's super cool. And we didn't want to do that Frog Pants and Diamond Club, so we stuck it in the Frog Pants slot today. We'll figure that out. Maybe we'll do Frog Pants on certain days. Maybe we'll do Frog Pants when Scott's here or something. Anyway, we need to pick a title as we always do. So if you're watching or listening live, go to showbot.tv/DTNS2, submit those titles. Let us know what you think we should name the show. And Nica is going to take us through kind of some of the stuff that's been happening with Copilot, because we had a few announcements over the break. And do you use it? I'm wondering about that too.
Yeah. So one of the things is when it was first announced about Copilot, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is actually kind of really cool. And a lot of, developers that I know is like, wow, this could really, be a game changer. I watched, when they first announced it, the demo of it. And it's, basically in software development, for those who may not know, pair programming is a huge thing. And that's just basically two people working together, coding together to either fix an issue or create something completely new. And what Copilot basically is an AI pair programmer. So it's like having a second person, with you. If you're typing, it's like, how do I want to do this function? How do I want to break it down? And it basically, as you start typing, it recognizes what you're doing and it auto completes, the steps, that it follows along with what you're doing, offers suggestions, and, automatically kind of spits out, what's next, kind of thinking ahead of what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, and kind of helps you out do that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I use it personally, and in corporate, it's one of those things where, because Copilot is a bit of a partnership between GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, and OpenAI, which is also partially owned by Microsoft. Microsoft is all, up in this. It's one of those things where people, rightfully so, had questions about what are we giving OpenAI access to? Are they going to be able to access our corporate data, our corporate proprietary code? How is that going to work? So at the time, the company that I worked for, they released a softer version of Copilot that allowed, they didn't roll it out company wide. Certain, developers got access to it. And even with the pared down version, because you don't want your proprietary code trained on or accessed, even the pared down version that was, offered as basically a pilot for, people to try out, it was still pretty good. So yeah.
And you're not worried. It sounds like you weren't worried like, oh, this might take my job. You were more like, this makes my job easier.
Yeah. If you think about it, a lot of discourse has been, the sky is falling. AI is going to come and take all of our jobs. Developers are going to be useless. People are going to be useless. And, there's a level of truth to that, but not to the extent that people are alarming or being alarmist about. I don't think it's that at all. To me, there are ways that AI machines and humans can coexist peacefully and honestly, successfully as well. And to me, Copilot is one of those things because it allows, it's doing something that developers already do, which is pair program with other people. So this is just adding another layer to it. And I've said before, I think on this show, on our show, is the way that we go about, integrating or bringing AI in is not a replacement, it's an adjustment. So it's basically as people adjusting and learning ways that, AI can be helpful. And I know some people are like, well, what is this pair programming or Copilot, how does this help me as a person? I'm not a developer. I'm not an engineer. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is we all use technology. We all use software. We all use programmed hardware. What this does is, to me, it helps speed up the process of how quickly you can roll out software, how much better, software can be. And that eventually trickles down to the user because it helps the user experience as well in the product that's created, the velocity of getting it out, as well as the quality as well. So that's, to me, that's kind of, the difference. And it's one of those things where it's a Microsoft owned, product, but it is, of course, available in VS Code, which is Microsoft's IDE, but it's also a plugin for JetBrains.
Mm-hmm.
There's a plugin for NeoVim. So it's different uses for this. And now it's gotten to the point where it's been integrated into your IDE, which is your integrated development environments, basically what developers use to create software. So it's one of those things where now it started kind of like as, let's kind of see if this works, see how people like it. And then it eventually, evolved into outside of GitHub and going into other IDEs. And, ultimately, in June of 2022, it became a full-fledged service, subscription-based service for individual developers. So it went from, let's kind of do a technical preview, let people kind of play with it, see what it does, see how it works. Let's put it in some corporate environments, see if it's as good as we think it is. And as you can see, it's now kind of progressed to being one of those things where it's out in the domain where developers can use it. And even more so, what was announced, you alluded to it during the kind of intro, that over the break announcements were made. And the next phase of Copilot is it's now it was an Android app first. Now it has an iOS app as well that was launched during December of this past year. So it's one of those things where now it's kind of gone kind of mass. So anybody can really, before anybody could access it, but now it's made simpler for an app that you could, use on your phone rather than, having to send out your big, setup and, all your monitors, all your screens. It's now pretty much in your pocket to be able to do some of this work. So I think, it's pretty cool. And I know, a lot of other developers as well that find, interest and use out of it as well.
Yeah. And that education discount's pretty sweet too. It's not that expensive.
Yeah. And that's something that's new as well. So with the, the Office, Microsoft 365, Copilot is now being a part of that subscription for higher ed. So it's, faculty, staff, basically you have to be over 18. So it's not really in the K through 12 arena yet, I'm assuming, but, for higher
college.
ed. Yeah. And starting as of yesterday, January 1st, it was available in Microsoft 365 and $30 a month. So it's not bad at all.
So do you code on your phone? When Toy Dao was talking about using the Pixel Fold to do all of her developing on, and it seems like that's more common than I would have imagined.
I don't personally use it because, I like to see things. I like to have stuff kind of laid out. Yeah. But what I've learned is in a lot of countries outside of the US, particularly, on the continent of Africa, many countries over there, power, internet can be a little bit, it can fluctuate. And I've seen that a lot of people in other countries code on their phones because they can't always trust that their, Wi-Fi is going to be, stable. But, phones, the connection on your phone is pretty much everywhere you go is really stable and really consistent. So a lot of people do do development on their phones. They may not have, a regular, laptop or even tablet. So the phone is what they have to use to get their work done or get completed what they're working on. So I didn't realize it before how many people use their mobile devices to do development, but a lot of people do.
Yeah. I mean, Gwen's in Denver, so it's not like she doesn't have access to the better bandwidth or anything. But
and I think even just with mobile use in general, I mean, a lot of people have just bypassed the desktop situation or even laptop situation. Yeah. If it can be done on a mobile device, then somebody's going to figure out how to do it.
CapCut.
You got a Pro Max screen. These super huge screens. These chips in these phones now are basically mini laptops. So, if you're on the go, if you're out, if you're moving, it's easy to pop it open and start doing your thing. So, it makes sense as people are more agile now. They're out more, and if you get an idea, I don't know, for me, if I get an idea for something, I pop up my phone, do a voice note, a voice memo, or type it something in notes. And it's one of those things where if you're working on something, I know for me, if I'm stuck on something, it's like, let me step away, let me get away from this because I've been working on this, I can't figure it out.
Yeah,
and you're out, go for a walk, clear your head, doing something, and then just like that, it comes to you and it's like, oh God, I don't want to forget this. Let me write a note about it. But now if you have, there are so many tools available, you can kind of pop out your phone, try out your fix. It works. Yay. If not, you go back to the drawing board, but it's really convenient to me. And it gives people a lot of flexibility to create stuff. So.
And I guess that's the idea with the Android and iOS apps for Copilot is that's the kind of thing that makes it even easier on a mobile device, right? Because it's doing a lot of the work for you. Now, it doesn't do all the work for you. You still have to check it, right?
Yeah. So it basically, like you said, it's a helper. So if you're doing something and it's following along, you still have to, if you're using specific variables or if it's something custom, you have to go back in and tweak it, but it kind of puts you on the right path if you're, doing especially basic things, like if you're declaring variables, if you're creating a function, those type of things, creating, an array, it like, duh, the tedious things similar to, just using ChatGPT, or Bard or whatever. It's like, you could type in a prompt, to, create a table that does A, B, C, and D. Is some of the things that require a lot of brain power, but shouldn't. But it's, pretty standard stuff that are pretty consistent across software development that you're going to use, regardless of whether you're in fintech, whether you're in automotive, whether you're in gaming. There are just some things that are pretty universal. And that kind of helps you get there.
And it's pretty good at that. How often do you reject what it suggests?
It really depends on what I'm trying to do. Sometimes it doesn't quite get right what I'm trying to do. But for the most part, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. And again, if you're trying to do something really custom or something kind of outside the box, it's like, no, I don't need your help on this. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. But, just to kind of get you rolling, or if you get stuck, a lot of times it's like, what are the parameters that I need to use to use this specific library? It'll help you fill in that. So you don't have to go to Google and say, what do I need to include in this, to fill it out? And it's just like, oh, well, yeah, thanks for reminding me. It's a string here, or it's in whatever the case may be. It kind of helps you some of the tedious things that you should know that you could just have a brain freeze, or it's just like whatever. It kind of fills in those things so you don't have to stop your train of thought to go and look up what specifically you need for, whatever library you're using. So. Yeah,
I feel like coding is a great example of how AI is used well, because a lot of the resistance to using these transformer tools is they get stuff wrong, right? And a lot of the headlines are about the things that they have gotten wrong. But if you don't expect them to be perfect, if you're just looking at them as suggestions and you quickly reject the suggestions that aren't good, they're helpful. That's what I'm hearing you say is like, yeah, it maybe doesn't get it right sometimes, but it gets it right enough that it speeds me along.
Right. And it's one of those things where I don't think we can expect any piece of AI to 100% do the work of a person. That to me, it's not, we're not there, and it's not reasonable because, how to talk about the sentient, taking over. There are just some things that the human mind processes differently than a machine does.
Yeah.
And those are things you can't necessarily teach or train a model to do. There are some things you're going to need, not just some, there are quite a bit of things that you're going to need some human, interaction for, some human intervention for. So like I said, it's one of those things where the sky is falling, AI is going to completely revolutionize and take over the world. Maybe, down the line, but right now you have to kind of, how they say, chew on the meat and spit out the bones. Take what you need of a particular thing and then disregard, what you don't need.
And then you've got a bunch of people over there complaining that there were bones. Like, this is basically where we're at. Like,
right.
This had bones in it. I'm like, well, yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did.
That's me when I eat fish. Anytime I eat fish with the bones in it, which is common, I'm always like, this one's got bones. I hate it. It's so tedious. But yeah, it's still fish. It's still good.
It's still fish. It's still good. And you still eat it.
I used to get at the dinner table, because we ate a lot of fish, but my parents were always worried that I would swallow a bone. I would get a nickel for every bone I found.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
It was a very clever way to make a kid eat thoughtfully and not get a fish bone in their throat.
Maybe we do that with AI. You get a nickel for every time you spot a coding error.
There you go.
I mean, with inflation, maybe it should be a quarter, but.
Yeah, I remember at one point, saying, I think I should be getting a quarter for every bone. And they were like, there was like a nickel jar somewhere that, they had nothing, they didn't know what else to do with. And they were like,
we're
give it to
with
Sarah for the fish bones.
Wild West Dan's like, who has quarters? Does it who carries change anymore?
I found a quarter on the ground the other day and I was like, mine.
Lucky.
25.
Hey, you get enough of them and you're going to pay for something. Hey, it's money.
Yeah.
A penny. Nah, I don't know.
What does the tooth fairy bring these days? What are the going rates?
Folding money, like $5.
Yeah,
I think it's more than that. Well, it depends on the family, obviously.
And I know some people, their kids are like, expecting like $10, $20. I'm like, for a single tooth?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you're gonna lose a lot of those teeth.
Axios has a story from Delta Dental about.
They took
data from Delta Dental that surveyed parents about what they were paying. Average gift in 2023 reached $6.23 per tooth.
Do they have regional areas where teeth go for more?
Ooh, yeah, that'd be cool. I don't see that.
You want to live in New Jersey if you want to get rich from the tooth fairy, okay?
Although 20% of children received money and a physical gift. I never got a gift.
No.
They get presents too now?
No. Yeah.
I got a silver dollar. And it was, a silver dollar is worth $1. That's all it is. But it was like a special dollar. So I had like 20 silver dollars for all my baby teeth.
All right. I found the regional rankings. The Tooth Fairy is most generous in the South. Nica, $6.59 a tooth in the South. Yeah. The Midwest,
start
where I'm
your
from,
teeth,
has the lowest value per tooth, $5.63.
That, I don't know, still sounds like a lot to me.
It's I used to get like a dime.
But I also
lift up your pillow, you see $1. It's like,
inflation. It trickles all the way down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's everything.
It's the same thing when I would babysit, the neighbor's kid on a Friday night. It was like, I think by the time I sort of was old enough to get a job and stopped babysitting, I would get like $20 for the night. And I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And you hear like $20 an hour now, or I'm sure it's even more. Where I was like, wow, wow, like kids are just wealthy. So yeah, but it's all relative.
I remember getting a quarter for one of my last baby teeth and my sister being really upset.
Oh, because she didn't
the
get
tooth
as much.
fairy had never brought more than a dime before that. $6. My gosh. You know, nobody's giving I'm sorry. The tooth fairy is not leaving a child $6.25. The tooth fairy is leaving 5 or 10. So,
Yeah.
you know, so the fact that the average is above 5 means there's a bunch of kids getting $10 bills, maybe 20s.
I used to really, I don't know how I was never successful at catching the tooth fairy in the act. But it would be exciting, tooth under pillow. Okay, you have to go to sleep, Sarah. She's not gonna come. And I'd be like, I really want to see her, laying there, eyes wide open, and somehow I never caught her.
Never caught her.
Maybe I was drugged.
My grandma stitched me a little felt tooth with a pocket, and we'd put our teeth in it and stick it under the pillow, and then when we'd wake up, there'd be the dime in there instead. It couldn't have handled a $5 or even a $1 bill.
Maybe mine was in a pouch too. It kind of seems weird to just have this like rando tooth floating in bed. What if the child is kind of a wild sleeper? Now the tooth fairy can't find the tooth. It's mayhem.
We were a just put the tooth under the pillow type thing. You make sure it was clean, or you put it in like a piece of like a paper towel or like a piece of something to cover it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty much just loose out there in the wild.
Yeah.
Roger Chang is confirming Tooth Fairy has brought his children $6 per tooth.
Wow.
A 5 and a 1, I guess. Saray wants to know if my grandma's felt tooth could have handled a $1 coin. I think a Susan B. Anthony, for sure. I don't know about an Eisenhower dollar. We didn't have any others. Actually, Susan B. Anthony came after all my teeth were gone anyway. It would have been my brother at that point.
At one point, I guess I was a teenager, I was done losing teeth, and I had the silver dollars. I remember there being specifically 20. Do you have more than 20 baby teeth? I don't know. There were 20 silver dollars. And, I kind of would look at them and be like, they're special. Don't spend them. And it was also in the days where, $1 or $2 could get you a lot of gas in your car.
Yeah.
And I eventually just started using them.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're
Cash 'em
tender.
in.
This legal tender. What am I going to save them for? Now I'm like, I should have saved them for posterity or something. But, oh well.
Or maybe at least one.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but
Right. Yeah.
I spent I have no idea what happened to my coins.
Yeah.
They became baseball cards almost immediately, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It was probably more nostalgia for.
Now, I did get Eisenhower
parents.
silver dollars from my uncle all the time, and I have a bunch of those still. I don't know why that was different. Maybe it's because it was $1 instead of a dime. We always told the people that I was friends with always told stories that you wanted to keep silver dollars because that's how you can buy beer without an ID. That if you go to this one store in East St. Louis, you could like just put down the silver dollars and they would be like, wink at you or something. I never tried it. I don't know if it actually worked in reality.
interesting.
Roger, how does the Tooth Fairy leave the $6?
In $2 bills. Lots of $2 bills.
Those are special.
Those
I
are.
thought you were asking, like, does she fly through the window or
Yeah, have you
down the
caught her?
chimney?
I mean, first of all, I'm not aware of the gender of the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, good
But
point.
True. Yeah. It's a they.
Two, I mean, if you wind it back far enough, the Tooth Fairy was far more monstrous than leaving money on your pillow after your tooth falls out. I believe it was an
What terrible things did the Tooth
It
Fairy
was
do?
an active occupation for the Tooth Fairy to take the teeth, whether or not they were coming out or not.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Never had that happen.
Yes, except in a bar fight. But that
mean,
was
you-
My
remember
niece
hearing
had a
sto-
loose tooth, and she was hoping it would come out on the 25th so that Santa and the Tooth Fairy would visit at the same time, but it didn't happen.
well, there could be a collision in between as they rush to the
It's
house.
probably best that they didn't.
I'm curious, and the reason I bring this up is because my wife had never had this done. But like when you had a loose tooth, did your parents ever try to yank it out with like dental
Yep.
floss? You tie it, yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
was
no,
gonna say you would
door.
hear stories of kids saying, "Oh, they would tie it to my tooth and then slam the door."
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
my dad did that.
My mom got
Really?
great joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom got great joy out of
I
helping
mean, that
people get their teeth out.
that terrified me. You know, I'd
That
get a
did-
loose tooth
my
and be
dad
like,
did that
"No
to
one can
me.
know."
Yeah. I'm a living like first
My dad
person
used to-
witness.
Yeah, my dad used to yank out
That's
my tooth,
just
except
that
for the
seems
one
so
long
violent.
one.
He
couldn't
would
yank
he
it
would
out.
only do it if he couldn't get it out himself. Like he would usually just be able to wiggle it out.
I
a
mean,
couple
you're
of
a
times
very
he-
brave kid to be like,
Yeah.
"All right, let's do it."
Oh
Let's
no,
tie
I
this
was not
dental
brave
floss
at all.
around.
I
Let's
was
go for
crying
it.
like a baby.
Oh, okay.
What I don't understand is what the dentist does is take the dental equivalent of pliers and just grasps
Yeah.
the tooth and just
So,
jerks it.
so
and
okay.
it comes out.
Another question, because it's been a while since I had baby teeth. When a tooth is loose, but it's not just falling out, does it become dangerous at some point? Like, why can't you just
That's what
wait
they
for
were
it to
worried.
fall out?
They were worried
You
about
could
it.
say you
swallowing
swallow
it. Yeah.
I think my kid
yeah.
swallowed her loose tooth, but whatever.
Yeah.
She's still around.
Not only did he do the door thing a couple of times, but every time we lost a tooth, we got cream to mint.
Is that alcohol?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a
What?
liqueur. That you,
He would take like a third of a shot glass of cream de mint. He would rub some on the gum,
Oh, okay. You weren't
and
just
then
like
we'd get to
shooting it
finish
back.
it.
It's so funny. I mean, I
I didn't have it. I had a tooth. This is the weirdest thing. This is the weirdest tooth story I'll ever tell. I had a loose tooth like all the way through junior high up here, like not my molar, but like a bicuspid. And when my other tooth came in, it never fully came out. So there were like two teeth next to each other. And then one day in my freshman year in high school, when I had a slush puppy, it's like a slushie that you get from a convenience store. One of the pastimes I had was drinking it and then just sucking the syrup and then spitting out the ice. One time I did that, I saw this silver thing fly out of my mouth, and it was
It was the
because
tooth.
it had a cap on it.
Wow.
Interesting.
yeah, teeth. What are you gonna do?
I wish we
Got
had
it.
3 sets, so I wouldn't have to worry so much about the ones I have right now.
I have to
Oh,
find
yeah.
a new dentist.
I have a great dentist that's not. It's closer to you than it is to me.
Oh yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Send me the deets.
Will do.
I had found a good dentist after not really liking my previous dentist. I've never had a poor experience with a dentist before. I've just had to get a new dentist after moving, or needing different insurance, that kind of thing. And I did not like this dentist that I went to a couple times. Just thought he knew everything. And then I got a dentist that I liked a lot, but that's up in Northern California. It's not going to work.
No, I like Dr. Kagawa. He's great, and
All right,
Eileen goes to him
cool.
too.
Great. I wouldn't say enthusiastic to go to my next dentist
No, of
appointment,
course,
but I like if it's gonna be a cool dentist, I'm happy to
Put it
go
this
and
way:
keep
we
it regular.
moved to where it now takes a lot longer to drive, and we kept him. We
Yeah.
switched other things like the eye doctor and stuff, but we kept Dr. Kagawa. It's just
When you find a good doctor, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with you.
It's hard. I mean, this is the thing: as you get older, you're like you're like I don't want to move. This person knows me.
yeah.
He knows
Right.
all my things.
He knows all my quirks, or she knows all my quirks.
Yep.
Oh, you're still chewing your fingernails? Like,
Well, that's the other thing is I've been to dentists where you would get a different dental assistant every time, right? Just depending on when your appointment was. But the way Dr. Kagawa does it, you not only get him, but you get the same assistant. You make your appointment with the assistant, so they get to know you too, which is helpful.
I see you bite your.
This is not an ad. This is not a paid ad.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, once you find a good doctor, they're almost
Yeah.
like in-laws because you're recommended for a lot of things.
All right. We have so many people to thank. We probably should have started 5 minutes ago. But because we had a holiday break and so many of you were so generous with the raises, we got Timothy and Tim and another Tim. 3 different people all gave us raises. Flying Out, Jerome, Captain Caveman. Good to see you back, Captain Caveman. Dustin, Joe, Mike, another Mike, Bert, Steven, Robert, Kevin, Fabio, Lee, Gabrielle, and Chris.
Yay!
I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you all for the raises. That's so heartening going into this year. So really appreciate that. And we might change how we do the Twitch thanks. Well, we'll talk about it. But for today, Willie Scott resubscribing for the 49th month at Tier 1. Zoe Brings Bacon giving us bits. We had a little Hype Train. BioCow cheered us with bits. GPEG84, Tier 1 for the 47th month. Nth Mike, Tier 1 for the 55th month. PC Mousy with 50 bits. Theater Monkey resubscribed for the 53rd month and also runs the channel. Possum 42 for the 38th month said, Happy New Year. My resolution, resubscribing on time. Got a bunch of new follows. Birdman Fallon, Valencia 112, Artie Rodrigo. Brian Dunaway gave us a shout out a couple of days ago. Compact Hack followed us. Frog Pants rated us 2 days ago. Dan Gilly followed us. Jams 404 followed us. Peace Corps 75 followed us. Nainu resubscribed at Tier 1 for the 19th month. Then there was a bunch of people who resubscribed over the break. Chaz Basden, Mike S. in Florida, Locacious 1, Techno Mensch, Futwitch 666, C-Spawn. Thank you all for supporting us. And thank you, Nica, for being here on the beginning of the new year and the beginning of the new decade of DTNS.
The new decade. Yeah. Again, it's always fun to hang out with you guys. Your audience is great. You guys are great. So yeah, it was fun.
Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, all. See you tomorrow.
Happy New Year.
All right, that ends the recording. Twitch folks, if I moved the thanks to after the goodbye, would you be too put out of shape?
But what's your reasoning?
Somebody asked about it in one of the editor's desk questions. And folks, a couple of folks were like, yeah, I wouldn't mind if it was after. And so I figured, well, let's ask the people it would affect directly. The Twitch folks. Okay.
Because you're getting thanked either way. If you're on Twitch, you're still with us.
Yeah, exactly. Andy Toy, Questar, C-Spawn, Possum 42, Web of Magic. Okay, everybody here live doesn't mind. So maybe we'll start doing it that way. In the meantime, we're definitely doing the title selection here. Our top vote getter is the one I went with for DTNS. Happy 10th birthday, DTNS, from Zoe Brings Bacon. Yeah. Nth Mike suggested we try Steamboat Willie listens to DTNS, and so should you. Wild West Dan put 10-year-old tech news, which could be taken the wrong way. That's our bonus.
Fred 819's DTNS goes to 11.
11 because it's our 11th year. I like that. iPad Fold ? From Moose2271. Okay, but we have to pick the GDI title. Our top vote getter is from Nth Mike. Happy 10th anniversary, DTNS. There's also the Tooth Fairy Inflation Index from Larry in Atlanta. New outro Who Dis from Howard, who made the new outro. DTNS.
Tim Conway is my dentist.
The one where Tom was crying like a baby. I mean, it kind of was a baby. It was a toddler.
Today's $5 per tooth is yesterday's at $1 from GPEG84.
Dramatizing. Gosh, All right, Tom, come on, get near the door. No,
I don't want to do this. I remember saying that. I don't want to do this. It'll be fast. That's what my dad said. It'll be fast. You won't even know what happened.
I mean, I didn't even.
That's the same thing my mom
ripping
said.
off a Band-Aid as a kid was traumatic. So the tooth thing in the door, or a pair of pliers, or I don't know what. I mean, I was just like, can't imagine. I'm going to run away from home if you suggest it.
Tim Conway is my dentist from Moose Tooth. I don't know what that means. Should we go with Tooth Fairy Inflation Index then?
Yes.
All right. Why not?
All right. Congratulations, Larry in Atlanta. We are now going to send you on a raid. Enjoy.
Do it.
In Discord, thank you for joining.